Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple more examples. So let's look at the square root of 24. Well, is this a perfect square, 24? It's not, right? Because only 5 times 5 is 25. That's a perfect square, but 24 is not, meaning something times itself doesn't give you 24. So we're going to have to break it down. So here we're going to look for two numbers that multiply together to give us 24. But we want to do a little trick. We want to have one of them be a hidden square, okay? Meaning a perfect square. So let's think about that. Well, if we know our multiples, we know that 6 and 4 can give you 24. Well, one of them was a hidden square. That's a perfect square because remember the square root of 6 times the square root of 4. Well, we just broke apart the radical. So we know that the square root of 4 is 2, right? Because we know this 2 times 2 equals 4. So that's a perfect square. So we take out our 2, and then we're left with our square root of 6. The reason we can't break down 6, remember, is because the only things that make 6 are 2 times 3 and 1 times 6, but we can't anything else that makes 6 besides 1 in itself. So we only know 2 times 3. Well, 2 is prime, right? Only 1 times 2 make 2, and only 1 times 3 make 3. So those are prime numbers. So you can't break them down anymore. So the square root of 6 stays that way. So the answer for square root of 24 is 2 times the square root of 6. So let's just think about that for a second. Let's just say that you didn't choose 6 and 4. You could still solve this. Let me show you a different way. You could say, well, I know 2 times 12 make 24, right? Well, if we broke these apart, we know the square root of 2 times the square root of 12. Well, we can't break down the square root of 2, so that's going to stay that way, but we can break down 12. Let's think about 12. Well, we know we have 3 times 4, right? And then we know the square root of 4 is a perfect square, so 2 times 2. Well, we can circle that, and then we could take out this 2, and we could leave our 3 inside. So we could take this out. So this would become square root of 2, that we just leave right there, times 2 root 3. Well, you can multiply these two radicals. So you could take the square root of 2 times the square root of 3. So anything under the radical you could multiply, and that would become the square root of 6, and then you would leave this 2 outside. Well, I don't know about you, but I think this was a lot easier. See, you could still do it this way, but the reason I'm teaching you to find the hidden square is because it makes it faster. Do you see how many steps you had to do because you didn't find a hidden square? This one is easier because you immediately found the hidden square. So again, you can get the same answer, but I want you to try to find that hidden square. It's a trick. So let's look at the square root of 18. Well, we know the square root of 18 is not a perfect square, right? Nothing times itself makes 16, so we have to break this down. So let's find a hidden square. Well, I know 2 times 9 make 18, correct? Well, bingo, 9 is a perfect square. So we could say, well, we have the square root of 2 times the square root of 9. Oh, we know 9 is 3 times 3. That's a perfect square. So we're just going to take that out. So it's going to be 3 times the square root of 2. And that's your answer. Wasn't that fast? Once you know your perfect squares, those are hidden, you can find them quickly. So I really hope that helps. And just to be very, very clear, and just really quick trick I'm going to show you. Let's say you have the square root of 10 times the square root of 10. Here's a rule here. When you are multiplying radicals, what you're going to do is you're just going to multiply 10 times 10. Those are your radicands. Multiply those together. So 10 times 10 equals 100. And you just put them under one radical. Now, the square root of 100 is, remember, 10 times 10. 10 times 10 is, 100 is a perfect square, so we know that just equals 10. Here's the trick. If you have two of the same numbers that you're multiplying together under your radicals, two of the same radicands, it just becomes that number. So the square root of 10 times the square root of 10 just becomes 10. I showed you why it becomes 10, but the trick is if you have two of the same numbers under the radicals and you're multiplying them together, it just becomes that number. So the square root of 25 times the square root of 25 would just be 25. Let me show you why. Because the square root of 25 we know is 5 times 5, and we know that's a perfect square, so it's 5, right? This is 5 times 5. That equals 5, right? You multiply those together. 5 times 5 equals 25, right? So the square root of a number times the square root of the same number equals just the number. So if you had a square root of 1,000,000 times the square root of 1,000,000, it would just be 1,000,000. I hope that helps. Bye.